Welcome everyone to another CTC software webinar. My name is Chris Bircher, Director of Technical Services here at CTC, and today we are going to give you an in-depth overview of one of the tools from the BIM Batch Suite called Family Loader. But before we begin, a couple things I want to mention. We encourage you all to ask questions throughout the webinar using the questions panel. I will do my best to answer those questions throughout the webinar, and we'll make sure to take some time at the end to answer any remaining questions at that time. Secondly, this is being recorded and will be made available on our YouTube channel shortly after the webinar has completed. My guess is that it will be sometime today or tomorrow. So with that said, let's begin. One of the things that happens in every firm is that things change, right? Standards change, families change, edits are made. New content is developed, right? And it happens everywhere. Doesn't matter what discipline you work for, architecture, engineering, construction, detailers, regardless, it happens. Which often ends up meaning that we got to take these new families or edited families or updated and load them into not just one project, but multiple projects. And it could be anywhere from a couple families to a few dozen families. And manually loading these items into your projects one at a time can be very time consuming, and things get left out, or things aren't updated and overridden properly, or whatever the case may be. The wrong buttons are clicked. Things get missed. So today we're going to discuss our family loader from the BIM Batch Suite that will show you how to avoid some of these common errors that we'll run into and enhance that workflow quite a bit. So today, what I hope you guys get out of this today is, the basics. We're going to figure out where things are, where the family loader is located, where the suite is, navigate the UI a little bit, get you guys familiar with it, and then how to load and reload content into projects or families for that matter. And then whether it's a single project or multiple projects or the current project for that matter. With all that said, my glorious introduction, we're just going to go ahead and get started and jump right into Revit. So, now, before I get into the Family Loader UI and introducing you guys to the app, I want to briefly just point out kind of the issues, right? So content gets updated and you've got a handful of projects, right? So now you have to open each individual Revit file. And if you're a multidisciplinary firm, you've got Revit files with different disciplines. And if you need to update a title block, you got to load it into all 5 projects or all 5 Revit files. And then maybe you've got 30 projects on top of it with multiple Revit files. So you got to open each one individually, depending on the size. That could take minutes, multiple minutes, 15 minutes maybe at the high end. And now you get the glorious process of going insert load family. And if the families are in different folders on the network, now we have to go ahead and browse to each folder, load the content in, browse to another folder, load that content in. And then maybe you don't know which one was updated because you didn't do the edits. So now how do you know which ones you're supposed to load in? So that gets to be it can be full of errors, and content could get missed. Things won't schedule properly now because of it, and various other things. So that's where Family Loader comes in. So if you go navigate to your CTC Productivity tab, and you will see a CTC BIM Batch Suite ribbon panel. I'm going to pull it down a little bit here so you guys can see it a little bit clearer. The purple tools here, Family Loader is bundled up under the free tools section, which is great. So anyone can have access to this at any given time, regardless if you want to pay for the rest or not. And a little bit about the interface here. There's not a whole lot to it, right? So we have a couple of different windows to navigate here. The first one is the primary one, which is where we define the external project files and families to load, and then what the load settings for those projects and families should be, right? So we add our projects up top, add our families down below. How are we reloading families? Are we only reloading families that are in the project, or are we loading everything in that we add here? So we have a couple of options to define here. We have the options for defining how we manage using our work shared models or essential files. Do we want to create locals or open the centrals directly? We have overwrite dialog suppression for the same idea here. And do we want to automatically save them or not? Or leave them open so we can go ahead and keep working after the fact, right? So you add your projects and or a family, right? You can also load content into a family for nested content, if you will. So if, for example, if you're building a bunch of door assemblies and you're working on the actual assembly itself and you want to nest in your door panel and the door frame and maybe the door swing component, those graphics. You can batch load those things into a family file using this tool as well. So then you have your add families option and settings for load, manipulating content within the current file that is open at the moment. And then some options for saving and loading in some settings. So we'll kind of hit them all as we go. So what we can do here first and foremost is add projects. So if I click the Add Host Projects and Families button, I now get to browse and pick and choose which Revit files I need to work with here. So if I click Browse, that's actually, I think that was the folder I wanted. It is. So I'm just gonna hit OK. And you can hit the top directory or the top level folder and then search within the subfolders to get the rest. So I could actually back up a step here. And hit search again, and it's going to give me every single Revit file found in this Revit models folder. So I've got all of my different versioned Revit files here right now. But I didn't want that. I just want specifically R23, so I'll get that fixed up, and I will grab my two of the Revit files for this example. Select those two, hit Add Selected, and hit OK. They show up in the list here, and now I can go ahead and grab the families that I want to load into the project. So now this is where you can either be selective and choose which families to load in or which folders of content to load in, or you can just grab the entire library that you have on your R drive, we'll say, and only load content that is currently loaded into the project. So it'll scan through the directory, find what's already been loaded into the model, and reload those and update those accordingly. Okay, so you have options here. So if I click Add Families and browse to a different folder here, so I've got, actually, that is on my C drive. Go to my temp folder here. I've got a bunch of Revit families stored here. I will grab this folder and hit OK. Search in the subfolder, don't include backups. And now I can pick and choose from here what I want to bring in. Or I can hit Select All and do it this way. So here's the entire directory of content. And now only reload families that exist in each host file, right? So these are my host files or projects. Family Loader is going to reference that list and reference the project list and only bring in what I need and update those files accordingly, which is great. Because now I don't have to know. I can just look, I can just kind of blindly do it. And if it's been updated, my Revit project will reflect that. So I can do that, only reload families that already exist. And then if you want to try to keep file size down, you can be explicit to the types that already exist. So if a family has 36, I shouldn't say 36, 3 or 6 types in the family, and you've only used 2 of them, and only 2 of them are actually in the project, that's what's going to get updated, are just those 2. You're not going to end up with all 6 if you don't want them. If you do want them, uncheck this box, you get everything. So you have some flexibility there for And that way you can minimize the amount of extra file size that you may add to the project just by kind of blindly loading everything. Secondly, down here, so we're going to create local because these are my central files here. So I prefer doing it that way and then doing a sync at the end. For my overwrite options here, I have our two basic options for loading in content: overwrite the existing version or overwrite the existing version and the parameter values. So pick and choose which one you want. If you're doing content updates like that, it's possible that you need to update parameter values as well. But it's also possible that there's been specific adjustments made for this project. So it depends on what the changes are. I'm not going to override that. I'm going to do the first option like traditionally you would do. And I'm going to automatically have mine saved. And we're going to sync our work shared files and relinquish all elements and close the Revit file when I'm done. Okay. So at this point, I can click load. And what's going to happen is it's going to open both of these files in the background one at a time, scan the list, load in the content that was already in the file, give you a report at the end of the day when it's done, letting you know what was good and what was not good. Okay. Now, I'm not going to do that because it'll take probably 5 minutes, and I don't want to sit. I don't want you to watch my screen with the blue wheel of death, right? So I'm going to take a step back and show you another way that this can be done. Okay. So what if we have? What if your company does a lot of healthcare projects, whether it's a clinic or a hospital, or you do a lot of educational facilities or multifamily housing, right? And you've affected, or maybe you do a bunch of those types of projects, and you do some schools and you do some multifamily housing. The same content traditionally gets used for each of those types of projects, right? And if you ever want to try to keep your template file to a minimum, we can build up some settings and load up a settings file, and then Family Loader will grab those families for you so that you don't have to go hunting for them, right? So, for example, I'm going to delete these from my list here and show you how that works. So what we can do is we have these open and save options over here on the right side of the window. So I've already pre-saved a few. So what I can do is hit open and browse to my CTC project list. And that gives me a list of all the project files that I have saved to that list, right? So, and it doesn't have to, this is all just one project, but you can have multiple of the same discipline files. It doesn't matter. It's only going to open them up one at a time. So any Revit file at this point will suffice. Same thing with families. I can click open and pick my family list, and it gives me a list of all the content that I had saved to it. To build these, to take another step back and show you how to build these, very simple, right? You load the file that you want to bring in. So if I bring in my 2 architectural files here, and then maybe I'll browse out to another location quick and grab, oops, that's the wrong folder, this one. And we'll do that, right? So we grab some 3 kind of architectural type files, and then I want the content. And we'll pretend these are all my healthcare projects. So I'm going to save this and call it my CTC health models. And for the content, same thing, add families. I'm going to go hit browse here, and then let's just do this. I'm going to go ahead, not program data, temp. Here's my families, and I'm just going to pretend like I have a healthcare folder, but we're going to grab equipment instead. I'm going to do, oh, that one doesn't have anything in it. Let's do this. All right. So now what I can do is grab the content that needs to be part of my healthcare project. So maybe my specific door tags and my occupancy tag, and we'll grab my title block, and we'll grab, I'm not going to pretend to remember where else I saved everything. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab a couple more. Grab a couple of these telescoping doors and sliding doors, right? And we'll grab those guys, and we'll hit add. Oh, I forgot to hold on control. Oh, well, we'll grab them again. There we go. And so now that I've got those loaded up, I can hit OK, and then save that as well. And there's no limit to how many families you can have in this list. So we'll say CTC healthcare families. And now I've got my settings saved. So if I were to open up a different Revit file or a different session in a week, I can just load those. So now, again, I'll delete these just to show you. And they're just simple text files. So if I click open, I can grab my health models, loads up the same 3 Revit files, load up my families, healthcare families, same thing, boom. It's exactly how I set it up, okay? And then in this case, I'm gonna hit load all families in because I know these don't exist in any of these projects because I haven't loaded them in yet. So that's what I'll do. So that's what I would do. I would go ahead and hit load all, create new local, suppress dialogues, quote, sync and close, okay? Very straightforward. Now, there's one last piece to this that I want to show you here quick, and that's working with content in the current document, okay? Now, I'm going to use a different Revit file for this. It's only slightly different. I apologize for not having it open yet, but it only takes a second. And I'm actually going to open the file that I was using in that example previously. And what I'm going to do here is a couple of different things. So first one I'm going to do is just grab some content to load it in, right? So I have the option here to, actually, if I go to Family Loader, there's a couple of different things I can do with this portion with the current document. Of course, it pops up over there. So what it does for me right now is it'll give me a report and a list of every single family that's currently loaded into the project. Everything, right? Just like if you were to take a look at it through the project browser over here, right? Same exact list. So what I can do here is, if there's content that was loaded in and you're not sure where it came from, you have an option here to hit report paths. So for example, you can check a category, say doors, or grab a specific family like this door and report the path, find out where it came from. Where was this loaded from? And if it can find it, it's going to show you, right? So it's going to be open and closed to check things, and that's just a notification to let you know what's going on. But here it is. So now it's running through the list, and it's saying that it can't find a bunch of these things. And the reason why it can't find them right now is because it was loaded off someone's C drive, right? Someone downloaded a bunch of content, saved it locally on their computer, and then loaded it all into this project. So that setup doesn't work with this tool. We need to know where the content is stored. So what I can do with Family Loader now is use this add host projects, grab that Revit file, update all the content from the network to get the exact same result, right? So that, because it's the same set of content, it's all the same door families that I had previously, and now I can update it accordingly. So actually, I'll just load up my quick little project list settings here, delete these, and then I can load the families from my C drive here. And now I'm going to go ahead and turn around and do the exact same thing that I'm telling you not to do, because that's where I have my content stored. So not the best practice, but what are you going to do? So you would pretend this says the R drive or the P drive, and it's wherever you have your content stored. And I'm just going to blindly load it in. So I'm going to hit load families. And then it goes ahead and does it. And then when I turn around and reopen this file, and they'll show up there. I'll be able to do the report pass again, and it'll tell me they were loaded here from the C drive. And then at the second step to that is, if content changes, I can reload them, no problem. And the beauty of this is that it does everything in the background, right? So you can have a project open, or a Revit file open, or a family file open for that matter, and do everything. So now it did its thing. Should be able to hit sync to central. Oh, I think I had that file open. And keep going. Oops. Click the button. Okay. And those family files have been here this whole time. Just to show you in the browser, these are the two that we had. And then you would come back into Family Loader. And actually, I should take a step back, right? So one of the nice things about Family Loader that I haven't mentioned yet is that when it's looking at the content that needs to be loaded into your project that you've specified, it's actually checking dates. So if you, for the date modified, right? So that if the date modified on the network is newer than what the date was of the file loaded into the project, it's gonna update it. If it's the same or flipped, it'll understand, Family Loader will understand that what's in your project is either the same or better or newer than what you're trying to load in, and it won't do it. So again, more built-in enhancements so that you don't have to know exactly which families are in a project and when they were loaded in or when updates were made, right? Especially if you just do the load all family or only reload or what already exists. It's still going to check the dates. And if it doesn't need to be loaded, it's not going to load it. So, and if I go here and do report pass again, there, it did that. So it got it. I must have had. So now it knows where it came from. Okay. And there's nothing else I can do at this point. So now I know, because I just loaded it in, I've got the most latest and greatest version of it. So if it changes, for example, if I just go ahead and open that up directly here, make a quick little change to it, then when I go back and do the reload, it will reload it. Otherwise, it won't do anything. There's the family. We'll go ahead and hit open. And for fun, we are going to change a couple of things here. So let's do, well, we're gonna go ahead and really let it rip. I'm gonna change the swing angle to 30. We're gonna set my frame depth to 8 inches. And then I'm going to set the fire rating at 1 hour. Okay, so I'm not changing a ton of stuff. I just want to go ahead and prove it out. Make sure I saved it and close it. Back inside of Family Loader, do the same thing. Add the host project, whether it's through the setting or however you want to go ahead and define it. I'll do it this way so that I don't have to browse everywhere. And add my family. Yep. actually, what am I doing? I'm getting ahead of myself here. I don't need to do that because I've got it open. So now what I should be able to do is grab that one family and hit reload. And I can do override the existing version and, in this case, parameter values, because I made changes to some of those values, specifically ones that control a dimensional input. So I'll hit reload. It's going to do it. And it did not, well, loaded 0 types, so it didn't have a type to load. And let's just see if it actually did it, or did I screw something up? Where did I? Nope. So I'm going to do it this way then. And we'll go like this. I'm just going to go ahead and add it this way. That. And, but, so that's the idea though. That's how the tool works. And that's it. So the whole point of the tool, while I'm navigating through this and trying not to confuse myself here, talk at the same time, is to give you the opportunity to load/reload content into your projects, regardless of what the project is or where the family came from, as long as it knows where it is. And you can save your settings. You can load it into as many Revit files as you want. It doesn't have to be a single file. It can be 2 files, 3 files, 12 files. Doesn't matter. It's going to go ahead and do it for you if you told it to. So, I was going to check that last button and I didn't do it. So now I'm going to get the same message. At any rate, what I want to do now is that concludes everything. I've covered as much as I possibly can at this point. So I want to, I'll show you this here in a second, but I do want to say thank you for those of you that need to jump off. I appreciate you guys. We always enjoy having you here. I'm going to say thank you again. Look forward to having you guys here every week. Next week, we'll be doing another one. I'll be doing another one on Tuesday, and I look forward to seeing you guys there. Enjoy the rest of your lunch hour, if it is lunchtime for you. And if not, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you all.